Thunder rolled above the trees. Hannibal trudged along the muddy path and pulled his cloak tighter. He wished through his teeth that he'd be out of this damned forest soon. The trees were beginning to unnerve him. Such reactions to old trees could be valid if Hannibal were a mere child cowering under his blankets at the shadow that looks vaguely like a clawed hand reaching over his window. But he was a grown man, so why did the trees bother him? It was their voices. The trees he passed had been whispering to him for the past hour or so. Their ceaseless voices dug into his ears. Whispers of long-lost secrets, hidden stories, truths behind lies. Hannibal had heard the legends of the forest. He'd heard stories that the trees knew secrets and would whisper them to anyone who ventured near. They'd share their cryptic knowledge with passers-by until the people were driven mad. Hannibal didn't want to venture through this forest after seeing how afraid of it everyone was, but he had no choice, as it was between him and his destination. He pressed onward along the old dirt road. A few hours passed, and the trees still obscured the horizon. Hannibal's legs grew sore. Even though a storm threatened, he needed a moment's rest. He stepped off the road and found an old tree to lean on. The thing was gnarled and bare, and its branches dry and broken. This tree shouldn't be a problem, he thought. He put his back against the trunk and slid down until he found a comfortable position. The nearby trees were oddly quiet, so he could at least enjoy a moment's rest in this place. She lied to you. Hannibal leapt to his feet. That was hardly a whisper. The deep voice seemed to come from, "No, I thought this tree was dead." Hannibal glared at the old tree he'd just been resting against. He thought the old mess of dried, gnarled branches would be harmless. "She doesn't want you." The voice came again, not a whisper at all, but loud and deep with a tone of insistence. Hannibal turned to leave, but the tree's words started falling into gaps in his mind where they somehow fit perfectly. His wife had been acting odd as of late. She'd return home from the market later in the day and not say a word as to why. Her attitude toward him had grown distant. "She lied to you. She doesn't want you." Hannibal's jaw tightened, his teeth scraping against each other. "What do you mean?" he asked the tree. "Who do you speak of?" "She carries an heir." Hannibal's eyes widened. The tree remained silent. "Well?" he asked. "What does that have to do with—" He froze. "She carries an heir, not she carries your heir." Hannibal's rage erupted. "Accursed tree. I'll have you for kindling for your lies. You know it to be true." "Shut up!" Hannibal struck the dried bark as thunder split the sky. Rain poured down in heavy droplets that had gathered and fell from the high leaves. "And there is more you still don't know." The whispers grew louder. "It is you that knows nothing. You are a damn tree. Trees outlive every other being in this world. We see every crime. We hear every lie. We know every secret. But only we here share them. And I shall not listen." Hannibal struck the tree again with his fist. "Then you will not know everything." Hannibal turned to leave and charged off several feet down the muddy road. His anger reached heights he'd never experienced before, and he knew it would advance into the heavens if he gave in to it. But he had to know. He stopped. The tree's revelation of his wife potentially having an affair with another man ate at him. There was more to this he didn't know. He still didn't want to believe it, but if it were possible, if it were so— He turned around and marched back to the old tree. "Tell me," he barked. "Tell me everything." Hannibal neared the walls of his grand estate, a bag slung over his shoulder and a mission on his fuming soul. He stormed through the front door, ignoring his wife's greeting. Her smile, normally a sight to warm his heart, only made him colder than the pouring rain. He stomped up the stairs and marched straight to their bedchamber. Hannibal's eyes locked on the door to his wife's dresser at the end of the room. Without another thought, he drew his blade and ran it through the door with swift force. The anguished screams of her lover were brief. He removed the bloodied blade and tore the door open, allowing the man to fall forward from the threshold. Hannibal tightened his grip around the handle of his sword and ran out to confront his wife. In his rage, he chased her out of the estate and tore off his ring to throw it away. He warned her to not return. Hannibal returned to the house and instructed his servants to dispose of the man's body, then immediately remove themselves from his estate as well. There was no telling how long they'd worked to keep his wife's affair a secret from him. Once everyone was gone, Hannibal stepped out to the garden behind his now empty home with the bag in one hand and a spade in the other. He dug a hole, just the right size to bury a human skull. But instead of a skull, he planted the contents of the bag he brought back from the Forest of Whispers, a sapling from the elder tree that told him where the intruding man would be hiding. After all the secrets he'd learned, all the lies he'd endured, this would now be the only thing he could trust anymore.